Have you ever actually wondered how economists figure out exactly how rich a country is? I mean, think about it. Millions of transactions are happening every single second, from buying your morning coffee to building a massive commercial airplane. Well, if we aren't super careful, it's frighteningly easy to accidentally inflate a country's economic data just by counting the exact same money over and over and over again. So, how do you measure a country's wealth without counting the same dollar twice? It's kind of this massive accounting mystery, but today, we're going to solve it.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the absolute most vital tools in macroeconomic accounting. It's called the value-added method. This is basically the ultimate technique used by governments and economists all over the world to accurately demystify and calculate national income. We're going to take what usually looks like an intimidating wall of economic theory and transform it into a really clear, logical, and honestly, super satisfying puzzle.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the double counting trap. Then we'll introduce the value-added solution. After that, we'll walk through a step-by-step calculation, cover some important rules and exceptions, and finally zoom out to look at the big macro picture.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the double counting trap. To really appreciate the solution here, we first need to understand the massive, glaring accounting flaw that economists have to avoid. Just imagine you're tasked with adding up the economic output of a really simple supply chain.
Let's look at a totally relatable example, the journey from wheat to bread. Okay, so step 1, a farmer produces some wheat and sells it to a miller for 400 rupees. Step 2, that miller brines the wheat into flour and sells it to a baker for 600 rupees. Step 3, the baker turns that flour into a delicious, fresh loaf of bread and sells it to a local shopkeeper for 800 rupees. And finally, step 4, the shopkeeper sells that bread to a hungry consumer, let's say you, for 900 rupees. Now, if we were just naive accountants, we might look at that chain and just add up every single sale that took place, right? 400 plus 600 plus 800 plus 900, well, that gives us 2,700 rupees. But here is the trap. That 2,700 rupees is a massively inflated, totally fake number. Why? Well, because the value of the farmer's wheat was just counted 4 times. The miller's services were counted 3 times. We are literally just looping the exact same value over and over again. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the difference between intermediate goods and final goods. Intermediate goods, like that flour used to make the bread, well, they're completely used up in the production process. If we just add the flour's price on top of the bread's price, we're essentially cheating the system because the flour's value is already baked directly into the final price of the bread. Make sense? We only want to measure the final goods that are actually consumed. Which brings us to section 2, the value-added solution. This is the economic framework that steps in to completely fix our bloated math and give us an honest look at production. The absolute core of this solution relies on a concept called gross value added, or GVA. GVA is defined as the measure of the increase in value when a firm enhances raw materials or intermediate goods during production. Notice the emphasis here. We are no longer looking at the total sales price. The focus must purely be on the new incremental value created at each specific stage of production. Nothing else.
Let's move to section 3, step-by-step calculation. We're going to calculate this out right now so you can see exactly how elegant this method truly is in practice. When you look at real-world accounting, folks with their calculators and spreadsheets, this is exactly the supply-side view of the economy they're using to figure out national income. Technically, that's known as net national product at factor cost, or NNPFC. They use this exact value-added method to carefully strip away all that double counting noise. And they do it using this golden formula. Value added equals the value of output minus intermediate consumption. It's just beautifully simple subtraction. You take what the business sold the product for, and you subtract exactly what they paid for the raw materials to make it. Whatever's left over, that is the true, pure value that specific business added to the economy.
Let's apply this golden rule right back to our bread analogy and watch what happens. The farmer outputs 400 minus 0 intermediate costs, right? So their value added is just 400. Next, the miller sells for 600, but they bought the wheat for 400. 600 minus 400 means the miller added exactly 200 rupees of value. Moving on, the baker sells for 800 minus their 600 flour cost. That's another 200 of value added. Finally, the shopkeeper sells for 900 minus their 800 cost, adding 100 rupees of value for providing retail convenience. Now check this out. Add up just that final column. 400 plus 200 plus 200 plus 100 equals 900. By summing only the incremental value, we get the true, accurate final value of the bread. No double counting. It's just pure economic perfection.
But as you probably know, economics in the real world is messy. Which brings us to Section 4, Important Rules and Exceptions. Every highly accurate accounting system needs strict guidelines to maintain its integrity, and this method is absolutely no different. So what exactly counts and what doesn't? Let's look at the inclusions first. Goods you produce for your own self-consumption are actually included because, hey, value was still created this year. We also include something called imputed rent. Basically, if you own your house, economists estimate the rent you would be paying, and they add that to the national income. We also include changes in inventory, which catches goods produced but not yet sold. But look over at the exclusions. We completely exclude secondhand goods because their value was already counted back in the year they were originally made. As we already know, we exclude intermediate goods, and really significantly, we exclude unpaid domestic services, like a homemaker's labor. Since there's no market transaction there, it's incredibly difficult to accurately assign a monetary value to it. Okay, let's zoom out. Welcome to Section 5, the big macro picture. We're going to take everything we just learned and expand it from our single loaf of bread to the massive scale of an entire country's economy. To calculate a whole nation's wealth, economists categorize every single producing unit into three main sectors. First, the primary sector, which extracts natural resources. Think agriculture and mining. Second, the secondary sector, which handles manufacturing and construction. And third, the tertiary sector, providing services, trade, and transport. Now, when you calculate the gross value added for every single business across all three of these sectors and sum them all up, boom, you arrive at the gross domestic product at market price. You probably know it better as GDP. But GDP actually isn't the final stop. To reach the ultimate metric, national income, economists make a few precise adjustments. They take that GDP figure and they subtract depreciation to account for the everyday wear and tear on machinery. Then they subtract net indirect taxes to remove market distortions caused by government taxes and subsidies. Finally, they add in net factor income from abroad to account for international earnings. And that perfectly balanced equation leaves us with the net national product at factor cost. That is the true, verified wealth generated by the nation. We've seen just how precise and powerful the value-added method is for tracking market economies. But it leaves us with a really fascinating limitation to ponder. As we noted a bit earlier, the countless hours of unpaid domestic work, caregiving, and community building are entirely excluded from these official numbers, simply because they lack a price tag. Which really begs the question, if this vital everyday work isn't counted in our national income, are we truly measuring all the value we create as a society? It's definitely something to think about the next time you hear a country's GDP announced on the news. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the numbers.